cuties! Today I went on an adventure. A while ago, had the idea to do what I'm calling a bookstore crawl. Now it has come to my attention that even though this was an original idea in my brain, apparently other booktubers have done this. Literally the day I came up with this idea and had already plotted everything out, Jesse the Reader did 6 bookstores in one day, which is a great video. His editing is on point, man. I can only dream of such editing skills, but I don't have those. Sorry. Instead you get choppy vlog style. This idea still came from my brain. It's still my idea, okay? So my idea was to find bookstores all over Colorado, at least between like Boulder and Denver. So I searched on the googly googs and I found 13 stores. However, some of these stores I already know about, but there were new ones. And Google may or may not have failed me a little bit. It led me to places that weren't really bookstores, but stores that were specific to a thing and also happened to have books in them pertaining to that thing. Now the challenge I prompted myself for this video was to go to each store in one day and buy only one book, or for some, at least one book from every store. This was actually very difficult to do. There were supposed to be an exception to this rule, but there was something very dramatic. Not really, but annoying, that happened to me. So without further ado, let's talk about the bookstore crawl. What are my arms? So I decided to start off in Denver with one of my all-time favorite bookstores, the Tattered Cover. There's actually multiple Tattered Covers in Denver, but this one's my favorite. It's actually built inside an old opera house. Trained opera singer who loves books. Shopping in this store and buying only one book was going to be difficult for me because I love lots of books in the store. Oh right, before I continue, there was a rule about money because I'm poor. Over Christmas I was given some gift cards and I got some money. So I was using only this gifted money to fund this endeavor. Back to Tattered Cover. This store is very hard for me to pick only one book. So I had to go through, pick a few, and then decide which was the cheapest for me to buy. And that book ended up being Heretics Anonymous by Katie Henry. It's about an atheist who's in a Catholic school, and the subtitle is a divine comedy. Now, if you don't know me, my favorite classic piece of literature is the Divine Comedy. So, Heretics Anonymous is, I guess, a contemporary, and I am very excited to read this. Next up, I went to a store that I'd never been to before, and that is called Kilgore Books. When I went into this place, it was the teeny tiniest dummy knocker of a store. It's all used books. It's a very limited supply of books. So this was going to be a challenge of, can I find something that I want to read? Mind you, I have an Excel sheet that tells me how many books I want to read, how many books I don't own, and all the books that I do own. I'm a nerd. And there's over like 400 books on my TBR of books that I don't own. There's 300 of ones I do. But anyway, but this was a very tiny store, and a lot of the books I either already owned, or they were really obscure, non-fiction-y, sports books, music books, language books, books that I don't really have on these shelves. Their fiction selection was decent, but a lot of the fiction ones I'd either already read, or weren't good copies of it because they're used, you know. But then I was looking in the autographed and first edition section, and I'm like, well, if I'm gonna splurge on a first edition, you know, at least I'll do it here and support a local bookstore. Support your local bookstores. And I found, and I'm very excited about it, it's not autographed, but it is a first edition Stardust by Neil Gaiman. Look at it, it's in hardcover. I have no words. Then I moved on to another store that was incredibly hard to find because construction. I also hate driving in Denver and parking in Denver because it's downtown Denver. It's horrible. So the next store was called Bookie's Bookshop. When I walked in, I was like, oh no, this is only kids' books. Luckily, they had some YA. But that was as high as they went. It was a lot of kids' toys, a lot of kids' games. It was very cute and run by old people who loved little babies. And I'm like, I don't belong here. But it was okay, because in their YA section, I found a couple and I had to decide. I had to make a decision. And I chose For a Muse of Fire. This one I don't know a whole lot about, but it deals with like shadows, and I think they're like puppetry people who deal with shadows. I don't know, but it's a cool cover. Oh yeah, and it's by Heidi Hellig. I didn't mention that, but it looks shiny and good. And I mean, I'm a sucker for this color scheme, guys. So that was Denver, and now we get into the drama. So, one of my favorite bookstores is called Second and Charles. Maybe you've heard of them. They are a secondhand book, record, CD, instruments, games, comics, everything kind of store. Now there's one close to my house at the Flatirons. There's another one in Littleton. So this was the furthest driving point of my day. Not only is it the furthest driving point of my day, it is also where I wasted 2 hours of my life that I will never get back. This was the exception to the money rule, because I had stuff that I wanted to sell, and whatever credit I got, I could spend on books. Therefore, I didn't actually spend any money, so I could get as many as I wanted, right? That's what I thought. I also brought them some consoles that they said they would take. I called this morning to ask, hey, are you guys able to take this? Because the one in Flatirons said, we're not taking any more of those, we have too many. And I went, okay, fine, I will ask Littleton. And I asked them, and they said yes. So I brought it with me, and then I get there, and they're like, oh, we can't take those, we have too many of those. And for the phone thing conversation, it was you with yeah, that's how I felt. But they were nice, and they're like, we'll take a look anyway. And then I had some books to trade back. So I'm like, here you go. They're like, okay, we'll do these. Small order. I'll hang around, looking at books, picking a few. I got like 5 already that I was looking for, and then nothing was happening. I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm getting really hungry. I was going to go to Panera because I had a gift card for Panera, but there wasn't a Panera around this area. And so I'm like, I'll just go outside to the Good Times, because there's one right there in the parking lot. So I went, had some Good Times. Still nothing. This is now about an hour later. I have finished my lunch. And I'm like, okay, I have a coupon at PetSmart. I need to buy the dog some new treats. Go to the PetSmart, buy the dog some treats, maybe a little bigger too. And then still nothing. So I go back in and I look, and one of the ladies recognizes me, and I'm like, yeah, I'm just still waiting for my thing. She's like, oh yeah, we've had a lot of orders today. And I'm looking around and I'm like, there's literally no one here, but okay. So I continue my search, and I'm walking around, and I sit for a bit, and I'm like, you know what? It's been 2 freaking hours. 2 hours. And so I go to the buyback area, and you know what's happening back there? Absolutely nothing. There are 3 people, and they're just chatting away. And I'm like, hey, do you know when about my order will be processed? And they're like, oh, probably at the end of the day. And I lost it, because I'm like, what? You said, did we not? We had this exchange where you're like, oh, it's not that many. Shouldn't take long. It's been 2 hours. What? And I'm like, I have to go. I have 9 other stores to go to for my project. And I just had to take the books, and that was it. I had to take them, and I left. So I was very angry, and I did not purchase anything from Second and Charles that day. It was today. I was livid for a while, and then I had to spend an entire half hour driving to the next location while being extremely angry because I just wasted so much time. Moving on. Then we went back to Arvada, and I had 4 stores that we were covering in Arvada. The first one is a place where I may be a champion of their Harry Potter trivia night. May or may not be that. I won't say that, but yes. And it's called Book Bar, and Book Bar is great because you can get books and you can get drinks. And I don't drink, though. I don't drink alcoholic beverages, but they do have non-alcoholic beverages, and they're fantastic. And sometimes they have butterbeer on the Harry Potter trivia nights that I may win. Anyway, so I went in, I was really angry, so I just went in and I came out with a book. And that book was Warcross by Maria Liu. Don't judge me that I haven't read this yet, because I love her writing. I read the Legend trilogy this last year. Yes, earlier this year. I read those, I believe, or earlier last year, 2018. It was in the 2018 one, which I still need to make the 2018 books video, but that'll come later. But I love her stuff. I also have her, yeah, right here, the Young Elites series here, which I haven't read yet, as you know. You see this whole thing about me not having read books? I'm trying to complete a lot this year. So we have Laura Cross. Moving on. So next up, this is where Google kind of failed me and told me there was a bookstore in Old Town, Arvada, a place I love. Now, I already know of one bookstore there, and I'll get to that later. This was one I hadn't heard of, and I'm like, how did I miss this bookstore? That's because it's kind of hidden, and it's also not a bookstore. This place, called Lithography, was more of a mineral and gem store, and they did have books, just books on fossils and gems and space. Finding a book here was going to be hard because none of these books are on my list. It was down to some gem books for helping me with writing, and then also down to the book which I ended up in the space section because I love space, and while I love my dinos, I have a lot of dino books already. I got the Stargazer's Handbook by Giles Sparrow, and this is beautiful. Like, it has all of these, every single one is like a constellation. It's all about these constellations. And it gives you all the info about all the stars in them, and I'm like, yeah. Though it needs some breaking in because it's very hard to keep open. But that's the story of Lithography. Then we went to a bookstore that I'm very fond of called the Book Cranny, which is in the midst of Old Town Arvada, which, if you've never been to Old Town Arvada, is very cute and adorable, and there's an amazing German bakery that everybody should go to. It's called Rhinelanders, and it's delicious. Now, Book Cranny is also a very teeny tiny store. It's one you gotta really dig through to find your gem. They have giant bins filled with just authors, so there's like 3 Stephen King bins. I was digging through, and I found in their YA section is very, very, very small. It's one shelf. And I found, I mean, a lot of them I had already. A lot of them are paperback. I'm not a huge fan of paperbacks. As you can see, these are all hard. Every single book on this shelf to this shelf are hardbacks, are hardcovers. And that shelf over there is 2 3/4 shelves, hardcovers. And then I have 2-ish shelves of paperbacks. I don't really care for paperbacks. They're nice and portable and stuff, but they're damaged so easily, and I just don't like them very much. Sorry. I mean, I still read paperbacks. I read a lot of paperbacks this year, actually, so I was trying to get rid of them. Well, anyway, I was thinking of getting Uglies, but it was in paperback, and I wasn't really finding anything else. I thought I might have to compromise, go with the paperback. But then, a shining light in the fiction section found me, and that was The Invasion of the Tierling by Erica Johansson, and I only recently found The Queen of the Tierling, so I'm very excited now. I have the second one. I know there's mixed reviews about them, but I want to see it for myself because it still looks like a series that I will be interested in. So now I have both of those, and I got this hardcover. I got it for $6. Then we move on to the last store in Arvada, and that was Black and Red. I have been going to Black and Red since high school. Fun fact, my current boss used to work there, and I knew him then, but he looked very different, and I only recently discovered that they're the same person. Mind blown. Anyway, small world. Black and Red is also, though, it's one you really have to dig through, because it's very eclectic. It's got that same vibe of Second and Charles in what they sell, but everything is much more cramped and close, and you can find some great gems there, but you really have to dig. And in their YA section as well, and in their fiction section, I was digging a lot. And this is where I cracked and had to get a paperback, and it was the only book that I found that I didn't own yet, but knew I needed to read because literally everyone talks about this series. I am hesitant about this series because some of the booktubers I watch and love it, and there's a few that I really respect their opinions and trust their opinions that don't really care for it, although they have loved the first book of the series. And that, if you haven't guessed by now, is Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. Everyone says Maas, but it's like Maas. It's 2 A's. Linguistically speaking, that should be Maas. I don't know. Everyone says Maas, though. Who knows? There's a few names in the booktuber community that I'm like, I don't think that's how it's pronounced. One day I'll meet the author and just ask her, pronounce your last name for me. So that concluded Arvada. We now move on to Boulder as fast as we freaking can. Most of the bookstores at this point are closing because it's about 5 o'clock now, and the bookstore I want to go to next, which is called the Bookworm, closes at 6, and it'll take me a half an hour to drive there. So I go zoomy. Because Second and Charles failed me, I decided I am allowed to buy 2 books in this store. Bookworm is a store that I have wanted to go to forever, but have never gone because it's very close to work and I drive by it all the time and I never get to go, and now I got to go. I started digging as fast as I could. A lot of books I already owned in the YA section because that's usually where I just go immediately as I go search the YA, because most of the books on my list that I want to read are YA because I like YA and there's nothing wrong with liking YA at my age. So suck it if you're one of those people. The first book that I found was the 3rd book in the trilogy that I own the first 2 books of, and that's Forever, which is the 3rd book in the Shiver trilogy by Maggie Stiefvater. Again, another name I'm not sure how to pronounce. Just as I was like, okay, time to go, my eye caught sight of another continuation of a series that I own, or at least I own the first book, and that is A Torch Against the Night by Sabaa Tahir, which is the 2nd book in An Ember in the Ashes. This series gets crazy good reviews from my trusted booktubers that I love, so I'm very excited to read this. Although, the 3rd book in the series, that cover doesn't match. And I don't like that. I don't know if there is a matching cover, but the one that I've seen everywhere doesn't match this cover or the other cover, and that is a really big pet peeve of mine. So time is a-ticking, and I wanted to go to Red Letter Secondhand Bookstore. When I first researched this, now mind you, Google, this was another Google problem. I searched when I was leaving Black and Red, which bookstores do I go to first because who's closing first? It said Bookworm closes at 6, it said Red Letter Secondhand closes at 7, and I'm like, okay, do Bookworm, do Red Letter next. I go to open Google Maps to show me how to get to Red Letter, because it's one I hadn't been to before, and it's like, it's closing in 5 minutes. So I'm like, you said it closes at 7. Now suddenly it's closing at 6. What's that about? So I didn't make it to Red Letter. I'm very sad about that. So we had to skip. So instead of getting to 13 stores, I only made it to 12. So then we moved to another store called the Lighthouse Bookshop, and that sounded great. And I walked through Pearl Street, because the next 3 stores are all on Pearl Street Mall, and I'm looking all over for it. I'm like, I don't see this anywhere. And my Google Maps is like, you're right here. And I'm walking around like, I don't see anything that's Lighthouse Books. And then I look down and there's some windows, and through the windows I can see books, and I'm like, how the hell do I get down there? And it literally took me about 20 minutes to figure out where the door was, but I found it. And as soon as you open the door, you realize this is not like a bookshop like the secondhand books. This is a place for the new age people. And there's nothing wrong with the new age people, just that all of your stores are burning like 15 different things of incense, and my asthma was like, hello. Actually, it was more like, hello. I would just appreciate the new agey stores just to lighten it up a bit. Or just put it out. Put it out, because it's very hard to breathe in your stores. This did not stop me from buying a book, or at least searching for a book. There's a lot of cool books there that was on different religions. There was some witchcraft books, there were philosophy books and psychology books, lots of different nonfiction books. Not so much on the fiction that I like to read, but I did find some. I found a book I'd never heard of, and I think it's more of a middle grade book, but there's nothing wrong with reading middle grade, and that was Where the Mountain Meets the Moon by Grace Lin. It seems to be on Chinese mythology. This looked really cute, and so I found a fiction book in a new agey store. Ha! I don't know why I'm like, haha, suck it. I was proud of myself for finding that, because I was going to pass out. So next, I went to another teeny tiny store that I did not know of called The Beat Bookshop. This was another underground bookshop, and I kept getting lost because Google's like, you're already on it. Actually, as soon as I left Lighthouse, it's like, you're already here. I'm like, no, I'm at Lighthouse. Where's Beat Bookshop? And I had to walk around forever in circles until I realized it was just across the street underground, but I found it. I thought Kilgore Books was the tiniest bookstore. Kilgore was, like, with the amount of space Kilgore had, it was. This one has slightly longer, but it was way more compressed. Do not bring a backpack into the store, because you will knock over everything. It was like clutching. I had my satchel. This is my satchel that I had with me, and it's pretty thin. It wasn't filled with anything except my one book. It was filled with this book. It was knocking into so many shelves, and you have to kind of like weave around, because some bookshelves are like this, and some are like this, and some are like this, and this, and this. Totally cute. But one you also have to dig through, and I was really, really worried, because I There was zero YA at this one. This was a no YA. It was run by one guy, and he is not a YA dude, but there was some fiction. Like, I thought maybe I'll just get a new copy of The Hobbit or something. And then, while I was digging through, almost giving up, I found a Japanese book. Thousand Cranes by Yasunari Kawabata. Like this. I don't know if you can see it well if it's focusing. It's a short little book, post-war. I think if you've read Haruki Murakami, which literally every person asks me when they figure out I speak Japanese, like, oh, have you read Haruki Murakami? And it's like, yes, 5,000 times, thank you. This seems very similar. I flipped through it a little bit. It's gonna be a quick hour and a half-ish read. New book. Okay, this video is very long, I know. We are getting to our last bookstore, a bookstore that my soon-to-be brother-in-law gave me a gift card for. Because I had a gift card, and because I missed Red Letter secondhand, I allowed myself to buy 2 books from this store as well. Before I get to the drama again, I want to show you the first book that I picked out, which I was super excited because it's finally out, and that is The Disasters by M.K. England. And I am super, super excited. Space is hard, okay? Guys, space is hard. I am so excited to read this book because it's going to be hilarious. Before I reveal the very last book that I got today, I'm very excited to have found this book. In every single bookstore I went to today was searching for a hardcover copy of this book. Found only in 2 other stores did they have paperback copies, but I was still holding out. And I thought, Boulder Bookstore won't let me down. And I was scared because I thought they did, because I saw in their like newer fiction area that they had paperback copies, and I went, shucks. No one's gonna have this hardcover copy. And after I picked up The Disasters, I just wandered a bit, because this was the last store of the day. Had a little bit of time left. I'm gonna wander a bit in the fiction section. And on the most bottom shelf, tucked way back in, I saw it and I thought, is this just another paperback copy? No, it was a hardcover copy of The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. And I am so happy. I have wanted to read this book for a very long time. This was published in 2011, and I haven't found copies of this book anywhere, let alone in hardcover. I don't care that it was $30. I found it. Even when I went to the checkout, the guy checking me out was like, I didn't even know we had this in hardcover. And I'm like, I got the only one you had. I'm so excited. So one of my favorite booktubers is A Clockwork Reader. And I love all of her stuff. She's obsessed with The Night Circus. She has a whole shelf dedicated. She has all these different copies of it. And I'm like, I want to read this. I am so happy. Even though today was a struggle with Second and Charles, which is a store that normally doesn't let me down. But today Second and Charles let me down. The Boulder Bookstore has now risen itself up on a pedestal and given me this book. And I'm very happy. I'm happy with all of the purchases I've made today, even the unexpected ones. And I highly suggest in your own towns to attempt a bookstore crawl if you can afford it. I did end up spending every single gift card and every spare cash that I had on today's endeavor, but that's what I had that cash reserved for. This was the first book haul of the year and the first video of the year as well. Let me know in the comments if you've read any of the books that I picked today, and if you like them or not. Don't spoil them for me, because that's rude. I will be making future posts about the readathon that I did and about the books of 2018, but for now, this is all the time I've had time for. Yeah, that was a good sentence. I'm a writer. And I will be making some other videos about my writing in the future, and possibly some dog training ones as well. If you guys want to see dog training videos, let me know if that interests you or not. I would give you bird training videos too, but I'm not great at that. As usual, guys, leave your questions in the comments below or on Facebook, Tumblr, and Twitter, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Screech. There we go. This is why I don't really vlog much anymore, guys.